All of his stuff looked good, so probably too good because it was probably Snug, but he was different in everything that he did. He locked up different. He locked up Snug.
Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Snug Wrestling. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
What's up? What's up? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Snug Wrestling with me, your host. My name is Edgar, and a special guest today, the 90 guy, Dr. Nicholas Jones, is on the show. Special guest today. How's it going, Nick? How are you doing?
Oh, living the dream, buddy.
Thank you for being on the show, man. As we speak right now, AEW Dynamite is going down, and I still managed to get you on the show, man. So thank you for being on and letting me take you away from watching AEW. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So is AEW still something that you still like keep up with a lot, or do you watch that company still, or is it like do you prefer to watch WWE? What's your wrestling intake nowadays?
I watch a lot of Impact and WWE. AEW, I usually keep up with it either through the results or I won't follow it every week. I do definitely try to keep up with it as much as possible. And then a group of friends will get together and watch the pay-per-views. So I'm usually having some input of wrestling from one company or another.
Yeah, same for me. The pay-per-views, at least when it comes to AEW, that's where it's at for me. Lately, I mean, this is just a personal preference for me. It's just I used to watch it every week. Like it's something that I had to watch every week, but lately I haven't felt like that. Was there a time where you did watch AEW consistently or not at
Yeah,
all?
I would have to say probably most I watched it was probably 2021, 22-ish. It seemed like they were, in the words of Eric Bischoff, you know, he wasn't trying to be better than WWE. He was trying to be different. And that's what they were doing. They were doing different stories, different angles to do matches. They weren't worried about the other show and competing. And that's what made them stand apart. And now it's like they're only focused on, well, we almost beat him this week, or, well, the ratings are this week. Well, yeah, when you're only focusing on the ratings and you're not focusing on the long term of, and that's one thing no
like
company
the quality of the program or the actual, like the production of the show.
Yeah, like if you can get a person to tune in every single week and go, whoa, I wonder what's going to happen next week.
Yeah.
It's to get somebody, once you lose them,
Yes.
then it a new fan.
Yeah, and actually, that's funny that you say that because I literally just heard that quote today. It's like, once you lose them, it's hard. It's hard to get them back, and I think that's kind of where I'm at right now with AEW, unfortunately. But after this program, after our show, then I'll catch up with Dynamite. I got a lot of interesting stuff that I want to share with our listeners today, and also get your take on. I'm very interested to see what. I kind of want to pick your brain about these different topics because you're a longtime wrestling fan, and by the looks of your background, you're quite the collector as well. And you have all kinds of belts, and you got all kinds of cool shit. So, how long? Let's go all the way back. Like, how long have you been collecting and watching wrestling? Tell us about your TikToks and stuff like that. Let the people know.
Well, I started watching wrestling in about 1989. I was about 4-ish, 4.5 years old. I have an older brother, about 5 or 6 years older than me, that was really into it. And my parents got us the rubber LJN figures.
Mm-hmm.
My brother would get the birthday party decorations every year. And then it just became, my mom and dad would take us to the shows. And then it went on to Hasbro's t-shirts. And it everybody knew it was birthday, Christmas, whatever. They knew what to get my brother and I, whether it was a figure, a t-shirt, a hat. And my brother is still a halfway fan, not dedicated, but he still watches the old stuff.
So is he older or younger than you? Your
He's
brother?
older than about 45. So he, still watches the older stuff, and he'll occasionally tune in to Raw, but he kind of fell off after the Ruthless Aggression era.
Okay.
Life happens, but
yeah.
The collecting bug never really went away from me.
Do you still like tell him like, oh man, like it's getting better, like this guy's really good? Like, does he still tune in every now and then, or is it just like,
oh yeah, I share my Peacock with him, so he watches the paper. And then I'll usually tell him like, hey, you should check out Raw from last night. Check out Hulu. This happened, The Rock's back, he was watching that. And, the whole nostalgia thing really got a lot of people back into it. But
yeah.
And the thing with, collecting, it started with figures, then it went to belts, magazines, and you're never really done. Like I've gotten into like Japanese figures, the Mexican arena figures. There's always a line, because I just went to an expo. I go every year, Square Circle Expo in Indianapolis, and it's like 100+ different wrestlers, memorabilia, everything. And I mean, I never walk out of there without at least spending $4,000.
Jeez.
Yeah. I look at it this way. I pay my bills. I take care of my responsibilities.
Right. That's your thing.
So, it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's your thing. I mean, I question a lot of my friends that they're really into gaming and PCs, and they'll spend like thousands and thousands of dollars on their computers, which is cool. But I'm just like, I would never do that. And one of my friends told me something that stuck with me. And he was like, look, man, everyone has their thing. Like some people like to spend money on cars, fixing up their cars really nice. I fix up my computer really nice, but yeah, it's just to each his own, man. And I think it's awesome. Your TikTok videos get a lot of attention because of also your super funny content, but also the stuff that you share, the belts and the figures. It's really, really interesting. So cool, man.
Been trying to, because I call my room the Fortress of Solitude, which is a play on a Superman's lair. And the best, like a lot of my friends who look at it and they're like, they don't get it. They're like, why would you do this? And I go, well, like, you have your music stuff, or you have your shoes that you collect, or whatever it is. I said, this to me is like my sanctuary, and the people that do get it, like, honestly, believe it or not, Star Wars fans get it. Video game collectors get it. I meet all these people and they all understand that, like, we all get it. We were all made fun of in high school for being nerdy, now it's trendy, while my friends fell out, I was the guy who wore a G-Generation X shirt to a football game.
Yeah. Yeah. I was speaking to another buddy of mine. He's been a guest on this show before. Shout out to the wrestling dude. And he was like, man, I still remember the days where I would be embarrassed to tell people that I like wrestling. Like I wouldn't even tell people. It was a secret because people would make fun of you for that shit, you know, back in the
Yep.
day. And I
Well,
totally get it, man. Yeah.
Brian Myers, Cardona, all right.
What's that?
Do you know who Brian Myers and Matt Cardona?
Matt Cardona, yeah. Zach Ryder, yeah. But I don't know the other guy.
Podcast group guys. They have like their own big podcasts and stuff like that. They hid their collecting habits for years when they were in the company, and you know, until like later, where like more and more wrestlers that I've met collect their own stuff. Matt and Jeff Hardy collect their own things. RVD collects his own things. A lot of professional athletes, once they're done with their career, they want to share their items with their family or their friends and be like, yeah, that used to be me. And now that it's more accepted by society, I no longer have to go to the register and go, yep, that's for my son.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. So I don't see the reason I wouldn't be able to do that, to have like as many figures and collector's items like you, is because I have kids and I have nephews and little cousins, and I know they would just walk up in there and just be like, oh, let me play with this. Oh, let me open this up. And I'll just be like, oh man, like I can't say no. I don't know, that type of thing. Yeah. So that's why I always keep them hung up here where no one can touch them. At least all the valuable ones. Well, yeah, cool, man.
As you know, when it comes to wrestling in general, there's eves and flows. And right now, especially with how popular WrestleMania was, we have a whole new batch of fans that are tuning in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. Which is good. It's a good thing, man. It's a great time right now. For both companies. I'm not just going to say WWE, AEW. And for me personally, there's not enough time in a week for me to watch everything like TNA or New Japan, GCW. There's just so much wrestling now. And maybe I just never noticed it before. Maybe there was always this much wrestling before, but now I'm starting to notice it. And it's just so crazy the amount of wrestling content there is out there.
I just think now we have access to it. We have the services. We have the subscription channels. Back then it was tape trading. And, hey, you don't have SmackDown in your area? A buddy of mine would record it a state over and mail.
Oh, man.
Visit his grandparents and bring me a whole stack of blank tapes of all the SmackDowns from last month.
Oh man, it makes it more valuable that way when you got to put in all that work,
Oh, yeah.
It's like, wow, this is great. This is amazing. Yeah.
Debuted on UPN. We didn't have it in my area. So I was like, well, how am I going to watch this? So, I tell, like a lot of the younger generation I run into, and I was like, we didn't have the WWE network. we had to or wrestling.
Yeah.
We had to pay $50 pay-per-view.
Yeah, I did that too, believe it or not, man. I remember those days. I miss those days, the good old days. Well, yeah, cool, man. So we talked about, a little bit about your collection, about what you do, but you also mentioned that you also you have a podcast, or you're part of a podcast as well, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I'm part of a weekly podcast. It's usually on Thursday nights, about 8:00. It's called Wrestling Heel Talk. And they also have a Facebook group called Top Rope Collectibles. And we get together, we talk about, what we got that week, what we're looking for. We usually have a segment called Roundtable where one of the members will ask, like, hey, what was your favorite SummerSlam? Who was your favorite superstar of the mid 2000s? and it's kind of a structured but not structured. We also take questions from the people in the comments,
Mm.
and in the Top Rope Collectibles group, it's run by two of my good friends, William and Ben, and they go to different conventions
Mm.
and get autographs, toys, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, it's all JSA certified, legit photos. I mean, it's really good stuff. And
That's
the
mhm.
best thing is we all have sort of the same collector mentality of we don't really always know what we're looking for, but
Mhm.
one of us finds it and goes, "Hey, look what I got," and then we go, "Oh yeah, I want that."
Yeah,
We're
I mean,
uh, addiction.
yeah, sometimes you don't even know what's out there until you see it type thing, you know?
It's collecting, and especially with podcasting. Podcasting has blown up so big.
Oh, yeah.
If you have an interest, there's a podcast for it more than likely.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
best, they're all different. Not everybody has the same wrestling podcast. That's why I always tell people, if you want to do a podcast, do one. Well, there's already a bunch, but yours could be different.
Mhm.
You could attract a whole nother crowd of people that's like, hey, this guy or this gal has something that I don't see.
Yeah.
And then you got a whole new group of people.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Be sure to check out there was the Wrestling Heel Talk podcast, right?
Yes.
All right. Be sure to check them out, follow, share, subscribe on and all that good stuff. Well, Nick, now that we got all the small talk out of the way, I want to talk to you about some business now.
All right.
So now you tell me how you feel about this, because when it comes to AEW, there's a lot of criticism that's going on within that company. Um, and I got wind of some comments that Jim Ross made recently, and he kind of also implied, well, I mean, there's room for improvement everywhere in every company. JR pointed out some of the things that AEW needs to improve, which I thought was really interesting. And I wanted to get your take on this because Jim Ross, he had an interview recently with the Busted Open Radio where Jim Ross graded AEW a solid B. He said that AEW is a B, which is not bad, but it's not great. It's not an A. JR is not like most people in AEW that are like, oh, this is the greatest company in the world. This is where the best wrestle. Everything is great. No, JR said, and I quote, a lot of things can be improved. Like anyone else in the company. AEW's challenge right now to me is creating new stars. Somebody on that brand has got to get hot. And that's gonna be I'm not sure. I think I read it wrong. Well, basically, he's saying that someone in that company now needs to pick up some steam. And yeah, he just feels like they're missing that one person that's that needle mover in that company. Now, we've seen that happen with MJF. I thought it was going to be Swerve Strickland. Now he's a champion. Who do you think could be that guy now in AEW or gal?
Well, the Jim Ross is right. There's a lot of problems with them relying on the same people day after day. The Young Bucks, Moxley, when
Mm,
Omega, their Jericho, Orange, just the list goes on. And then you're not using guys like Danhausen. You're not using all these brand new talents that you're bringing in. And the thing that really just confused me, You have Swerve Strickland, who's your champion. The first Dynamite, you didn't even have him come out and talk.
Right.
Like, what? Your main guy who you've been building doesn't even have a segment.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well have just thrown him on Collision. And I don't understand it. I don't understand the mind frame that Tony Khan is in. You know, it just seems like he's too focused on, you know, being the cool guy. And it's like, trust me, Vince did a lot of things that made a lot of people mad in the company. Was some of it unwarranted? Sure. But he got results.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Sometimes you can't be the best friend. You have to be the boss. And there was a lot of correlation between WCW and 99 2000 and what's going on right now. They were relying on Nash, Hogan, Hall, whatever. When Punk left, they lost their Hogan. They did.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I agree.
But
Yeah.
Omega went on the shelf for, you know, his stomach issue. They lost their Bret Hart. You know, when you don't have, like, if I were to show a random Dynamite to somebody and say, hey, watch this for 3 weeks, and then at the end of it, tell me what you remember, they'd be like, well, there was a match where a bunch of guys flipped around. There's like 17 stories going on, but then next week it's a whole different thing. And I go, there it is. But if I were to show somebody an entire month worth of Impact or Raw or SmackDown, they'd be able to go, yeah, I like that guy right there. Do you remember his name? Yep, that guy is Drew McIntyre. You know, that guy is Damian Priest. Oh, I love the Judgment Day. You know, that they're a really good faction. They come out every week, and it kind of reminds me of, you know, the Generation X, you know. And it frustrates me because AEW could be so big.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to beat WWE, but having that other option, you know, like we used to have ECW, we had WCW, and we had WWF.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually Impact came around. When you have multiple companies, you have, not everybody has to be a WWE fan. They can still watch, you know, I watch nothing but New Japan, you know, or I watch nothing but GCW indie shows, whatever it is. There's enough niche product for everybody. So for Jim Ross to be like, you know, we came really hot out of the gate, and yeah, the pay-per-views do great. But if your TV doesn't make any money and isn't consistent enough, and you're not bringing in new fans, you're losing old fans, and, you know, you don't have little Johnny in the audience going, you know, I am a big fan of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tells all of his other friends, hey, I went to a wrestling show. Well, who'd you see? Some guys with long hair, and they jumped. You know, there's nothing memorable. There's no character development. Now, I will say that I love Tony Storm's black and white gimmick.
Yeah.
That's good. You know, I love, you know, a lot of the stuff that they do with the women's division.
Mm.
You know, they could take a lot from Impact's women's division.
Mm.
A lot of their individual talent has characteristics that separate them from everybody else. You know, when Jade Cargill left AEW, they lost one of their biggest draws. Because right now, with Dr. Britt Baker being gone, who do they have?
Just Tony Storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of talent. And this
I mean, some would argue Mercedes Moné, but it's like, I don't know about that.
I hate that. I didn't like her in WWE either.
Sasha Banks, no, yeah,
Um,
I agree with you on that.
they're making such a big deal out of her. She's not that good.
No, I never thought she was that good. So when I found out she was gonna be in AEW and they made such a fuss, I was like, oh,
Well, when
people are gonna be disappointed about that.
you have to chant your, your slogan to get people to chant with you, it's not over. Nobody's calling you the CEO. What are you the CEO of? You know,
Yeah,
I,
that's a good
it,
question.
what all I remember is she left the company because she got mad, and instead of being, an adult and saying,
Mhm.
"Hey, this, what can we do about it?" She just left.
Yeah, yeah. They tried to take a stand, and a lot of people applaud Mercedes and Naomi for it, and a lot of people like Michael Cole went on air and
Yeah.
was like, "Hey,
Well, and
these
look at where
girls."
she swallowed her pride and was like, "Hey, I didn't go about that the right way." She went to
Mhm.
Impact, made a pretty big splash there, and now she's right back to where she belongs.
The interesting thing too about all of this, even this is coming from Jim Ross, who's a
Oh
part of
yeah,
that company.
multiple
So
companies for
yeah,
many.
right, and he was even in like talent relations, and he was like a scout for the WWF and all of these things. But AEW brought in Okada, they brought in Will Ospreay, they brought in Mercedes Moné. They're bringing in all of these people, all of these big names, and
And
Jim
nobody.
Ross is like, yeah, and even Jim Ross is like, yeah, we need something else instead of
Well,
whatever this is.
for years, their roster is too bloated.
Mhm.
You only have so many hours on, because they have Dynamite. Do they still have Elevation?
Now they got rid of that. They
And
have
replace.
Dynamite. Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
So you only have so many hours in a week. How many people you have on your roster, and you show the same people week and week after week? You know, because like I collect AEW figures as well, and it's like, how many of these have they put out, and how many do I see on TV regularly?
Hmm. Yeah,
Like
that's a good point.
it just the only thing that they've really got going for them, and I think it's because of the fact that people know who he is. Obviously, Adam Copeland. You
Hmm.
know, everybody knows him as Edge. He has a following. He could have
Right.
showed up anywhere. Oh yeah, I knew who that guy is, but the average person doesn't know who Okada is. You
Hmm.
know, I don't even get me started with Dave Meltzer, but Dave Meltzer, he has been, the writer of the wrestling newsletter for years, and he gives them,
Right.
such big props. AEW is a company that solely relies on the what I would call the worldly wrestling fan. Usually, if you're an
Mhm.
AEW fan, you know what's going on in New Japan. You know what's
Yeah.
going on in a lot of the indies and stuff. But
Yeah.
the person that is going to be tuning in all the time goes, "Oh, Okada. I kind of read about him once." But if Okada had showed up in WWE, everybody would have flipped their lid because they would have been like, "Oh gosh, that's Okada." Because I knew who Okada was because I read the dirt sheets. I
Mhm.
read Wrestling Illustrated. I keep up with the news, and I think if they don't do something fast, they're going to end up. I wouldn't say they would close, but they're going to lose a lot of dedicated people that have been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Once you
Yeah,
lose
for
that,
sure.
you're
Mhm.
in for a fight.
And I kind of feel like that's already been happening, even though some people like to deny it. But it's starting to seem that way already with the attendance and the ratings and all that. Which a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, no one cares about that. Just enjoy wrestling, bro." But it's like it's kind of hard to ignore sometimes. You kind of have to be like, "Oh shit," like it's happening. I mean, some people just refuse to see it that way, which is fine. To each his own,
Well, still on a major TV network because TNT just lost the NBA.
Right.
That's a huge blow. And, WWE is going to be going to Netflix for Raw. So they don't
Hmm.
have to work, you know, huge numbers. And
Hmm.
USA, they've always had huge numbers anyway. So,
Yeah.
to not go and say, well, numbers really don't matter anymore. It's in a different era. It
Hmm.
does. Believe it or not, in 2024, the numbers do still matter. Unless you have a streaming service or you're on some type of subscription thing where you're getting dedicated money every month, it matters.
No, yeah.
Because sponsors, pay for the commercials that get aired during your program.
Hmm.
And I've seen where they may be cutting down on their house shows because they're not making enough money to be traveling to all these towns. And there's word that they may be doing it on a sound stage similar to what WCW did back in the day at MGM.
Hmm.
Save money,
Yeah.
episodes on a sound stage right there in Florida.
Yeah. No, for sure. I agree 100%. We'll see what happens with AEW. There seem to be getting closer to finally deciding what they're going to do, if they're going to stay with the WBD. There's been talks about them getting some type of service deals, a streaming deal, I should say, probably with Max or something like that. But hey, we'll see what happens. AEW, they got a lot of money to back them up, so they got that
Oh,
going for them. So
and
they're not going anywhere.
his father actually owns a big factory across the state line near where I live. So I'm pretty familiar with the Khan family. They've got a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that was enough AEW talk for one show. Let's go over to the other side now and let's talk about the WWE a little bit, but specifically, there's one person in the WWE that's been making a lot of news lately, at least today. Austin Theory, one of my personal favorites in the WWE, one half of the tag team champions over on SmackDown. He's a heel, so he kind of runs his mouth a little bit out there in the media, which is great. I like to see it. But just today, he might have said something that probably has a potential to piss off a lot of fans, especially a lot of fans of the Attitude Era, like yourself and I, because Austin Theory claims that the WWE from today has surpassed the Attitude Era, which is some bold statements coming from a guy so young like Austin Theory. Like this guy's so young. So for him to be saying that was kind of, I don't know, it didn't really sit right with me. So he had this to say. Austin Theory said, "We do all these things and every show is packed." So was in the Attitude Era. Even when I'm just doing meet and greets like in Australia, I did one, there was 300 people that came over to see me in the middle of the mall. WWE is an all-time high now. I think that's fair to say, and you can't deny it. I think we've surpassed the Attitude Era. This era has solidified the new world of professional wrestling. So, being someone that you experience the Attitude Era, you're experiencing the WWE from today. Do you think this is a fair statement by good old Austin Theory here?
I see where he's coming from, but for somebody who was there at the dawn of the Attitude Era, you wouldn't be able to get away with doing a lot of things that they did during that time between, the PC culture and a lot of, risque characters and storylines that they did. This is known as, the reality era where they blur the lines of kayfabe. That's the difference. They were still doing kayfabe in the Attitude Era, but they were turning it up and seeing how far they could go. The difference between that and now is we know how far you can go, and they know, like, hey, us being a worldwide company, being a part of TKO, being on multiple networks, whatever, we know what we can do because we also have to answer to stockholders. And the Attitude Era, the company didn't go public until like late 2000, 2001. So they didn't have to answer to anybody other than USA. They push the envelope and get in trouble and then just apologize.
Right.
Theory saying that, to me, kind of made him look a little foolish. Like, I think a better statement would have been, the era that we're in can definitely parallel a lot of the things that they were doing during that time. If he would compare it to and be like, hey, we're starting to become more edgier and not insult the fans. We're trying to blur the lines between reality and what people really think's going on versus like, oh, our stuff's much better than, Austin and Rock, Taker and Mankind, stuff like that. Was all the Attitude Era great? Absolutely not. There was a lot of bad Monday Night Raws matches that people tend to forget about.
Yeah.
We as fans back then had rose-colored glasses. We thought it was all good, and then we look back and we go, not all of it.
Oh man,
match between Big Boss Man and Al Snow. Ooh, that was
brutal.
So bad.
Yeah,
but I see what he was trying to do. He definitely got people talking, which is what his goal was. Because, as they've said before many, many times, no press is bad press. If you've got people talking about you, whether it's good or bad, people are talking about Austin Theory.
Yeah, for sure.
He was in the wrestling news because when he was in Australia, one of the reporters had asked him about, whether wrestling was fake.
Oh yeah, he used the F word.
Yeah. That wasn't anything compared to what Vader did. Vader choked somebody out when that happened. So, it's one of those things where I think it's going to come back to bite him in the butt, because up until recently, I mean, he was considered to be the chosen one, by Vince there for a little bit, and then he just went around and now he's a tag team guy with Grayson Waller. But where do you go from there?
Right. Yeah.
Another guy.
No, yeah, for sure. I thought when I first heard this, I was like, man, why? Like, it's kind of hard for me to root for Austin Theory when he's saying this. I want to because I'm a fan of his, but there's just like so many things wrong with that statement there, with what he said. I mean, just simply like, even though like you're right, there's a lot of bad stuff in the Attitude Era, but looking back, I still believe it was probably the greatest time in the WWF. I mean, there was over like 5 million, 6 million people watching every week. You know, you had Austin, Taker, Mankind, all these people drawing all this money, and just it was so huge. It was like part of pop culture. You had people like Mike Tyson, and now it's getting big again, but I don't think we're ever gonna see another
Well,
era like that.
fails to mention that, before the bloodline became a thing, before The Rock came back, I would say probably, about Royal Rumble time, or even, a little bit before that. Yeah, they were doing okay, but they weren't selling out arenas. You know, you would see some of the shows and it would be turfed off. I mean, they weren't doing bad.
No.
Once, it became WrestleMania season and The Rock came back, then they were doing the sellout arenas.
Mhm.
They were doing oh my gosh, we just did record number sales on the next PLE. We just did this many views on the YouTube channel. It just now became, that big hit within the last, 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
Before that, it was just kind of coasting. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was just kind of there.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah.
you know,
And there was also a period of time where it was like 2009 to like 2013 where it was just terrible.
oh yeah, it was a very down time. I mean, it was
Yeah.
almost painful to watch some of the shows because it was edited.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm hoping for our sake, for the fans' sake, that Austin Theory, when he said this, he's talking about like in the future, because I'm hoping that this thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger to the point where it's just like we can eventually compare it to that Attitude Era at one point. But right now, I think it might be a little bit too early.
Yeah, I think eventually it will, you know, get to a point where, because them being a part of TKO, they have a wider audience now. You have UFC fans that may tune in casually. And because of, the worldwide notoriety of UFC, they may have
Yeah.
even big, TV deals at some point.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned UFC because that kind of transitions into our next topic, which also involves good old Austin Theory from A Town because he just can't help himself. Austin Theory just loves to get attention. And this time he did it. Well, before I go on, now that UFC and WWE they're under the same TKO umbrella, there's always talks. Who are we gonna see from WWE go to UFC? Who from UFC is gonna come to the WWE? And this is just fantasy booking, but hypothetically, what if I told you that the WWE is gonna book a match between Austin Theory versus Conor McGregor?
Conor McGregor would wipe the floor with him.
Yes, he would for sure. Most definitely.
I walk in there, take one swing, laugh at him, and walk out. I
Just
mean,
like
we
that, huh? That easy.
passed that mixture. We had Ken Shamrock, we had Dan Severn.
Yeah.
We had, as a matter of fact, I believe Chuck Liddell even did some stuff in Impact.
Yeah.
We've had mixed martial arts mixed up with wrestling. You had Brock go to UFC. You had CM Punk
Punk.
do. Ronda, went into wrestling, and I think people forget UFC is some tough stuff. It's not anything to mess around with. Are there some guys in the WWE that could, go into the octagon and put up a good fight? I think so. I think you might see some, interesting matches, but you're not going to see, Damian Priest go in there and win a big fight. Is he a big guy? Is he a strong guy? Sure.
Yeah.
But, he's a professional wrestler. There's a big difference.
Yeah. I just thought, man, that image, I think it would be so amazing because Austin Theory, I feel like he has that type of heat that whenever someone comes over to the WWE like a celebrity, it's Austin Theory, the one that's going to get beat up most likely by them, like
Yeah.
kind of like the Miz type thing. So
Yep.
I'm like, man, I would love to see that happen. I would love to see Conor McGregor show up at like a WrestleMania or something and give Austin Theory like a chokehold or a punch or something crazy like that. But the reason that I bring this up is because Austin Theory was asked about, who are we going to see in the WWE from the UFC? And Austin Theory responded with, what is it, Conor McGregor? Is that who we want? Is that who we want to step up to Austin Theory, the undefeated tag team champion? I mean, maybe Conor's so tough. Maybe he just wants to fight both of the tag team champions. Maybe he wants a handicap match because of his ego. So Grayson Waller, he's working. He's healing here. But Conor McGregor, he can be quite of a heel himself. So I think we should book it. Book it, Trips. Let it happen.
A type of, heelish, cocky gimmick anyway. I mean, honestly, he didn't do UFC. He would fit into the wrestling world. He had, as a matter of, we had, who was it? Oh, gosh. Money Mayweather.
Yep.
He, did some stuff there for a while. He fought Big Show. And
yes, he did.
He had that type of, heelish type, cocky, over the top gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
I, a organized type of match, I think it would be pretty good. I mean, obviously it would be all over the news. I mean, it would be on ESPN. It'd be on every sports outlet. We have Conor McGregor versus, a wrestler. I mean, this isn't the first time we've had, boxer versus wrestler. We had Muhammad Ali before. We had Mike Tyson, involved. So having this relationship with the UFC definitely opens up a lot of possibilities. And I think both Dana White and Triple H know that.
I know, man, but I'm just like, I'm ready for it. Like, I can't wait. I want to see them do something like some crossover really soon, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes. King of the Ring. You excited for that? I think that's this weekend, right? Are you going to be able to catch that?
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it. It's hard for me to really put a lot of emphasis on the tournament anymore, just because it doesn't really mean anything. The older King of the Rings, when you won it, you were the guy. If you won that King of the Ring, you were most likely going to be the next champion.
Correct.
Besides 99, nobody cared. But like when Bret Hart, Brock, anybody that won, it was, you're the guy.
Booker T.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be the guy who we're going to give you the ball and see what you can do with it. So, this is my thoughts. I think they're going to have Gunther win it, and then they're going to put the title picture. That's why they lose the Intercontinental title to Sami Zayn. Gunther is a believable person. He would be an amazing champion. I mean, look what he did with the Intercontinental title. Dude held it for a record amount of days. He is a legitimate tough guy.
Hell
and
yeah.
he can talk. He can work with anyone. So, them putting that kind of confidence in him, making him the king of the ring, it's I hope they do. I think it would be really cool.
You,
The queen of the ring, I have I have my thoughts. I think it's going to be Jade Cargill.
oh, okay.
I think that they're really wanting to push her to the moon, just because of her star power, her presence in the ring, just the type of talent that she is.
Wait, I just remembered something. I think she got eliminated on Friday Night SmackDown. Now that I'm thinking about it, Jade Cargill, she got
Did she?
disqualified. Yeah, she disqualified herself versus Nia Jax.
Oh, darn.
Yes,
Huh.
I'm pretty sure that got her eliminated because Nia Jax tried to do the chair shot. Jade Cargill blocked it, hit her in the back.
That is my whole thing out the window.
Yeah. So here, let me see. So right now we got Lyra Valkyrie, who she's already advanced. So she's waiting for the winner between Bianca Belair or Nia Jax to face at the finals. So those are the three names that are left for the Queen of the Ring.
I would say probably Bianca then. I don't like Nia Jax. She's better than what she was, but she's not a like I don't know, I just can't get behind her. Like she still works too stiff, and to me it's kind of like with Roman at first. They're trying too hard to push her down everybody's throat instead of letting it happen naturally. And I think
Mhm.
that's what her in the beginning,
Yeah.
giving her all these opportunities out of nowhere, having her come back and squash Rhea Ripley. I'm like, you're having her come back and squash one of the most dominant women in the division,
Hmm.
all because of who she's related to.
Right. Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. So
I
when it comes to like the queen, the Queen of the Ring, you might be right. I mean, I agree with you about Nia Jax. I don't think no one really expects that to happen. I mean, I don't think I'm hurting anyone's feelings by just saying that Nia Jax, she doesn't have it. She's not good on the mic. She's
Nope.
kind of reckless in the ring. So I think mostly everyone would agree with that, unfortunately. Bianca Belair, now she just won tag team gold recently with Jade Cargill. I'm thinking because Lyra Valkyria, she's been on a roll and she's had backup from Becky Lynch. You've seen Becky Lynch like be like the motivate her and like, oh, we're both from Ireland and all these things. I think they're gonna push Lyra Valkyrie to win this thing.
It would be
Now,
interesting. Them pushing a new star would definitely be a good idea.
yeah. And I mean, by the time this show right now, we're on live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. By the time this comes out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the Queen of the Ring would already taken place. So we by then we're gonna know who actually won this thing. But when it comes to the men's King of the Ring, literally everyone, it's like Gunther's gonna win this. There's no doubt in anyone's mind since this thing even started the first time it was announced. I'm pretty sure everyone went with Gunther. But Gunther, he's waiting to face the winner between Randy Orton and Tama Tonga, which is going to take place this Friday on SmackDown. So, just for shits and giggles here, Nick, who do you think is going to win between Randy Orton and Tama Tonga to face Gunther at the finals?
I know who I want, but I think I know what they're going to do. I think they're going to go with Tama Tonga, which I don't know if you watched Raw on Monday. Why in the world is he making noises like Butthead off of Beavis and Butthead? Dude, he's going. I'm like, what? I was sitting there watching this. I go, what is this?
Yeah.
Why is he doing this? And they're like, hey, you ready to go? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Oh man.
I
Everyone got a kick out of that one, man. That was so funny.
I think they may debut Jacob Fatu as being the newest member.
I
know they supposedly signed him.
Right.
So I think have some type of interference to where they're going to cause Randy to lose.
Yeah, and that would make sense too, because I think that the issue right now that they're having with Jacob Fatu is he can't go into certain countries because of his criminal record. So I think if they're going to if WWE is going to debut Jacob Fatu, but it have to be in the States, I don't think they would be able to do it in Saudi Arabia, for example, at the pay-per-view. But yeah, you're right. If they're going to debut Jacob Fatu, I think this match versus Randy Orton and Tama Tonga on SmackDown for the semifinals of the King of the Ring, I think that would be a good place to do it.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, for sure. And of course, the winner out of Randy Orton and Tama Tonga, they're going to face Gunther at the King of the Ring this weekend. And like we all agree, Gunther, no matter who it is, Randy or Tama Tonga, I think it's safe to say that Gunther is going to win it. The only thing, though, is I don't think that WWE has actually explained what the winner of the King in the Ring actually gets. Besides bragging rights, do they get a title shot? I think that Gunther may have implied that during one of his promos before the tournament started, but it hasn't been established. We don't know what's going to happen with this, right? I mean, have you heard anything that I don't know about?
And Xavier Woods had it.
They didn't, right?
No.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, so then what's the point, you know?
I mean, even when Shinsuke Nakamura was King of the Ring, they didn't put him in the title picture. It was just more of a gimmick for him to wear the crown out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see what happens. We definitely got that to look forward to. But yeah, that's what's going on today in the world of wrestling. We'll see what's going on with Dynamite, and we'll be talking about that because we also got Double or Nothing coming up here. Yeah, we got Friday Night SmackDown. We got a shit ton of wrestling to go and see this week, which is going to be exciting. Dr. Nicholas Jones, the 90 guy. Thank you so much again for being on the show with me and talking to little old me. It was nice to get to know you, and hopefully this is the first of many.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to come back on.
Love to hear it. One last time, tell the listeners where they can find you at.
They can find me on TikTok at the 90 guy. You can find me on YouTube at Dr. Nick, and then I'll have my Instagram as the game 2716. So I mean, if you go to the TikTok, it has all the different links for all the different socials.
Right on. And my name is Edgar. This was Snug Wrestling. Sorry, I did I cut you off there? Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Pretty active, and then if you want to see me on Thursdays, I'm part of the Wrestling Heel Talk podcast on Facebook, and we also broadcast on YouTube as well.
Well, there you go. People follow Dr. Nick, the 90 guy on TikTok and all the social medias, and also follow me. My name is Edgar. I'm the host of Snug Wrestling. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk soon.